I'm Jim Kowalski, the Dean of the Cathedral, and I'm delighted to see so many people here. This is an important opportunity to be gathered in the presence of Phoenix, if not directly under them. We have been indeed fortunate to work with Xu Bing and to have this expression of his creativity and his commitment as a global citizen to important discourse, in this case about living wage and people treated as commodities, as labor, and certainly not just in China, but sadly even in this country. And he to be a part of the sponsorship of this evening. I'd like to draw your attention to another piece of art that you may have a chance to see tonight, or you can always come back. And we're delighted that Greg Botts, who's an artist very important to us, who's been very supportive of the Cathedral, has the stations again here at the Cathedral. And of course, for us in the tradition from which I come, this is the season of Lent, and we're thinking about the Passion and all that kind of narrative, and these stations really have become important to many people. This evening is co-sponsored by the Weatherhead East Asian Institute and an extraordinary array of departments at Columbia University. I am one of many who believe we benefit greatly by being in a neighborhood with that great university, and anytime we get to partner with them, we find it a very exciting opportunity to bring resources and, the most important of them, people together, as represented this evening from so many different places, with an emphasis perhaps on China, with an emphasis on American poets and Chinese poets, but really an effort in a rather challenging way, I might say, as a former English major and someone who tried to do literary criticism. Poetry is not easy, and it's not made easier when you try to do it from the perspective of another language. That so many of you are committed to poetry in general and in particular tonight to this effort is, I think, a sign of hope that we really care about those transnational issues that have animated exposition and poetry. The Cathedral has tried in more than 100 years of its life to be a part of that discourse as we explore the human condition and see the function of art as not only helping us to critique what is, but also to imagine together as our imaginations are educated by this kind of art, the world as it could be. And to do that as global citizens across cultures is indeed a wonderful thing. So thank you very much for being here tonight. I'm going to give you advanced apologies. I may be called out before the end, and if so, it is not an expression of disinterest. I hope I've conveyed my delight. And now I'm pleased to introduce to you Professor Liu from the university.
Good evening. On behalf of Columbia University, I would like to thank Dean Kowalski and the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine for providing this extraordinary opportunity tonight. We have 5 esteemed poets from Beijing, joining 5 distinguished poets from New York for an evening of bilingual poetry in full view of Xu Bing's spectacular art installation, Phoenix. What a privilege for all of us to gather here and celebrate art and poetry. The city of New York is a place where numerous poetry readings take place in any given week. What makes tonight's event special and unique, as Dean Kowalski already pointed out, is the meeting of artists and poets in this extraordinary space that has been transformed by Xu Bing's installation. We have the good fortune of having the artists themselves with us tonight, who will give the closing remark. Our invited poets are Marilyn Nelson, Bei Dao, Charles Bernstein, Ouyang Jianghe, Pierre Joris, Zhai Yongming, Arthur Weaver, Xichuan Mei Bersenbrook, and Zhou Zan. To save time, I'm not going to introduce them, each of them. The audience are referred to the program, this program, for the short biography of each poet printed there. The Chinese poets will read their works in the original. Please follow the English translation of each Chinese poet in the program. We're not going to separately announce the order of the poets. Please follow the program. And to anticipate the reading, I would like to mention just quickly that Xu Bing's Phoenix inspired the poet Ouyang Jianghe to compose a long eponymous poem in which he writes, quote, "We are not birds, but we cannot resist the urge to soar." So tonight, let us soar with the imagination of the poets, and let us pay our tribute to the Chinese migrant workers who make the buildings soar and whose labor is dignified and made tangible by Xu Bing's art. Finally, I would like to acknowledge the support of all the Columbia University institutions besides the Cathedral Church of St. John the Divine, who have made this two-day event possible. I'd like to thank the Weatherhead East Asian Institute, the Confucius Institute, Xu Bing Studio, Star East Asian Library, the Institute for Comparative Literature and Society, Literature in Translation at Columbia School of the Arts, Department of East Asian Languages and Cultures, the Department of Art and Archaeology, and the Department of English and Comparative Literature, and the Columbia Global Centers in East Asia. I would also like to thank the important contributions made by individuals, including Catherine Forshey, Kenneth Ross Yelsey, Chris Peacock, Lisa Schubert, Isadora Wilkenfeld, Chloe Estep, and many of our Columbia student volunteers who helped today. Now, we move on to our program, and please join me in welcoming the poet in residence at the Cathedral, Marilyn Nelson.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome you also on my own behalf to the Cathedral this evening, and to say that I'm very honored to be reading in this illustrious company. I think I'm only going to read two poems. The first one, since we have people who've traveled halfway around the globe to be with us this evening, this is a poem about travel. It's based on the episode of the Lotus Eaters in the Odyssey. It's called Among the Lotus Eaters. If you don't know the story, Odysseus has arrived on this island with his soldiers in a ship, and they taste the food that the people on this island eat, and as soon as they taste it, they decide they don't want to go home. They want to stay here and be lotus eaters. So this is called Among the Lotus Eaters. An archipelago of atolls, rings of coral interfacing sea and sky, protective reef, deep pass, shallow lagoon around the Motu, hundreds of hues of blue. Maidens, hundreds of hues of brown, offered trays of their food, a flower called lotus that satisfies yet increases hunger. I sat down, asked myself why I should starve. Eating a lotus flower, I knew my wife had found another. My children were tall, parents themselves, perhaps. My parents gone to illness or forgetfulness or dust. Must I go home? What is home, anyway? Should I consider one spot of green earth more mine than all the rest of the planet? Why not declare here home and take a swim? Breathing the frangipani fragranced air, I feasted on lotus and understood how ant-like are the lives of humankind, how comic the havoc fixes we invent to circumvent fate and the natural law. Did Troy's fall make a nebula tremble? Which of the seas was once Achilles' tears? Whose children will recall my Odyssey? Stay or return? What difference will it make in the long-run metaphysathlon between now and the looking back future if I stay here, feeling all human pain through the god-eyed poetry of lotus, or if, damn you, Odysseus, you drag me from the lotus eater's distance wisdom back to the sweat and spray of minute life. This second poem is a smaller one. There is my voice and there's the voice of the muse. I'll try to figure out a way to make a distinction between the two voices. It's called Counting Pains. I sit counting my rosary of pains, composing lists of things I'd like to do if, inshallah, I'm given enough time. Granite kitchen counters, a few more poems. From here on, I plan only small projects. I don't want to leave anything undone, except the love you have to stop loving if you forget how to, or when you die. And what about you, Muse? Will you die too? Or will you be granted a better host? It must have been somewhat disappointing, always dog paddling in shallow waters, my anvil counterbalancing your wings. I'll live as always, only in your words. Thank you.
序曲。为什么此刻到远古，历史逆向而行？为什么万物循环，背离时间进程？为什么古老口信由石碑传颂？为什么帝国衰亡如大梦初醒？为什么血流成河，先于纸上谈兵？为什么画地为牢，以自由之名？难道天外有天，画中有画，电有短路的爱情？ 难道青春上路，一张张日历留下倒退的足印？难道夜的马群奔向八方，到天边畅饮黎明？难道江山变色，纸上长城也是诗意的苍龙？谁在圣人的行列中默默阅读我们？谁从流金的风铃，谁带血的鞭梢，不断呼唤我们？谁用谎言的红罂粟照亮苍茫大地？谁把门窗的对话卖给穿堂风？谁指挥秋天的乐队，为小桥迎取一盏幽怨的渔灯？哪儿是家园，安放死者的摇篮？哪儿是彼岸，让诗跨向终点？哪儿是和平，让日子分配蓝天？哪儿是历史，为说书人备案？哪儿是革命，用风暴弹奏地平线？哪儿是真理，在词语寻找火山？何时乘东风而来，从沏好的新茶品味春天的忧伤？何时一声口哨，为午夜开锁，满天星星在咳嗽？何时放飞一只鸽子，把最大的广场缩小成无字印章？何时从关闭的宫门，从岁月的裂缝涌进洪水的光芒？ Part 1。逝去的是大海，返回的是泡沫；逝去的是一江春水，返回的是空空河床；失去的是晴空，返回的是想见；逝去的是种子，返回的是流水账；逝去的是树，返回的是柴；逝去的是大火，返回的是冰霜；逝去的是古老传说，返回的是谣言；逝去的是飞鸟，返回的是诗行；逝去的是星星盛宴，返回的是夜的暴政；逝去的是百姓，返回的是帝王；逝去的是梦，返回的是歌；逝去的是歌，返回的是路；逝去的是路，返回的是异乡；逝去的是无穷的追问，追问的没有声响。我是来自彼岸的老渔夫，把风暴的故事收进沉默的网。我是锻造无性欲望的铁匠，让钢铁在战火之痛中更坚强。我是流水线上车衣的女工，用细密的针脚追寻云中的家乡。我是煤矿罢工的组织者，释放黑色词语中瓦斯的音量。我是看守自己一生的狱卒，用钥匙的奔马穿过锁孔之光。我是年老眼瞎的图书馆员，倾听书页上清风与尘土的冥想。我是在内心牢笼的君王，当绸缎从织布机还原成晚霞，目送落日在铜镜中流放。 是晨钟敲响的时候了，是深渊中灵魂浮现的时候了，是岁月，是季节眨眼的时候了，是花开花落吐出果核的时候了，是蜘蛛网重构逻辑的时候了，是枪杀古老记忆的时候了，是刽子手思念空城的时候了，是星空连接生者与死者的时候了，是女人在广告上微笑的时候了，是银行的猛虎出笼的时候了，是石头雕像走动的时候了，是汽笛尖叫翻转天空的时候了，是时代匿名的时候了，是诗歌泄露天机的时候了，是时候了。
It is so wonderful to be here with all of you in the presence of this incredible art in this sacred space. I will be reading a few selections from City of Eternal Spring, beginning with short poems that are part of a dialogue with the Tao Te Ching. Unspoken. I saw my faith riding on the light in the ocean one morning when the sound of waves breaking broke me. I knew the weight of what is too much to try to see. Each sparkle in the light, the infinite space inside the invisible that lives in me and will not surrender itself to naming. Flux. I am a city of bones deep inside my marrow, a song in electric chords, decrescendo to mute, rise to white noise, half silences, and a blank harmony as all comes to nothing. My eyes, the central fire of my soul, yellow, orange, red, gone in an instant and then back when I am for a glimpse as precise as a bird's breath, when I am perfect, undone by hope, when hope will not listen, the moon wasting to where I need not worry that bones turn to ash, a brittle staccato in dust. In Taiwan, tea plantations and women in black in Taipei. It is dusk in the city and here in the mountains, inside the thick green way of a place where rain is breath and summer mist the gas that lets you dream of being lost, cast away in a paradise that is not a paradise for those who live here. I am too familiar to nightmares that push me here to hide from them, but they set on the edge of the sun's light, pushing down into morning in the middle of the Atlantic. The tea comes with a young woman who stares at me, the black she has heard of, the black she cannot see, and we light the fire in the table, hear it puff up. I am full of reasons, strings of hurt I cannot let loose here, where no one knows the sirens on corners of black homes, hard hands on the grips of guns, bullets made for Nat Turner and Gabriel Prosser, or for me, black man daring to live, black man following the trance of women tipping on loose stone tablets of sidewalks in thin black dresses under parasols to hide them from the truth. The long walk up to Mao Zedong's retreat. In the museum that was his house, his books are on the bed where a woman should be, except he is not here either. We walk up the steep hill to the courtyard. The gate looks down to Beijing. I see the places the fires of the foreigners did not burn, the stone left from buildings that stood up to the invasion, and I lean against the gate, my stomach upside down and full of the unfamiliar. It is a cold chill over the harmony of mountain and river, and we take tea against the shivers, old and young poets, my American tongue now naming the things it knows: cup, tea, cigarette, sky. Chinese is the long drive here from the city, standing next to Sun Wenbo, waiting to start his car, listening to Zhang Di speak of what it is to lead poets along the riverbanks of metaphor. And I am the one whistle in poplars in a state far away, Virginia, where a tall young man finds his baby brother sleeping in the grass, hiding from school, wakes him so they can dream of families and sons that go searching. Night walk in Taipei for Bening. It is a walk that begins with red beans we cook in the old room above the theater, leaving there to walking the crowds into the wet fall of night until we reach the straits and fly on the night song of silver hair, two webs of electricity, the moon lit with the way we make lightning, plucked stars for an aria from Peony Pavilion. When love meets us, it is a voice in dust above the edge of cold cliff, and we lift up the hot dish made with hero worship. Wind and air have forgotten magicians who can fly beyond the range of compass. We are free in the broad space of dreaming. This next poem is one I'd like to dedicate directly to the sculptors. I was in Beijing in 2005, and the Chinese Writers Association gave me a gold friendship medal, and I saw some workers coming out at lunchtime. The workers in Beijing, spring 2005. It is lunchtime, say the feet clomping out from tarpaulins, metal riggings, walls in progress, men with blue hats in their hands, clothes thick with work. In China, this hard march to uplift and wealth is called the time of cruelty. Mandatory 12-hour shifts, a mouth of a gift horse for the poor. They pass me frozen in the intersection. It is time for lunch, and I reach for my brown bag, fried chicken sandwich, sweet potato pie, a cup of coffee on the top of the heater in the steel mill. Somewhere in my pocket, a hidden book speaks, 3 Negro classics. Du Bois looking ahead of me to now, my Mecca to China, the math of 15 years of factory life, coming to a dance between 3 and 5. The 3, the way things come to be, as the immortals dream of the I Ching way to reality. The oracle of all change, a thin howling wolf looking for peace inside the blues, where 5 is a flattened fifth, or the 5 tones of this language of a hand and ache, the rhythm of my life, my worker heart, a lotus pond in Hainan, the water murky, the sun an unsure but steady nuclear fume that breathes a sting into spring with daffodils, with children who do not die. Some whistle blows. I go back down under with these men I do not know, singing a song my father sang. 15 years ain't no long time. I got a brother somewhere, got a lifetime. And I'll close with a short poem that is the last poem in this collection. It's entitled Being Chinese. In Los Angeles airport, I sit stunned by the English. Letters, harsh things with no stories I know. The food smells dead, metal forks and knives set for making war against food. I am undone and done again, broken off from narratives of birth and being, of limits broken by the genius of slaves. I stand here where I was born, and the mask wait for me. Thank you.
第一首诗，菊花灯笼飘过来。菊花一点点飘过来，在黑夜，在周围的静，在河岸层层的童声里，菊花淡，淡出辽影。儿童提着灯笼飘过来，他们浅浅的合唱里，没有恐惧，没有嬉戏，没有悲苦，只有菊花灯笼，菊花的淡，灯笼的红。小姐也提着灯笼飘过来，小姐和她的仆从，他们都挽着松松的街，他们的华服盛装不过是丝绸、飘带和扣子，不过是走动时悉说乱响的璎珞、耳环、钗凤。小姐和小姐的乳娘，他们都是过来人，他们都从容地寻找，在夜半时面对月亮。小姐温柔，灯笼也温柔，他们飘啊飘，他们把平凡的夜变成非凡的梦想。每天晚上，菊花灯笼飘过来，菊花灯笼的主人浪迹天涯，他忽快忽慢的脚步使人追不上，儿童们都跟着他成长。这就是沧海忆灯笼的故事。如果我坐在地板上，我会害怕那一股力量，我会害怕那些菊影、光影、人影，我也会忽快忽慢，在房间叮当作响。如果我坐在沙发或床头，我就会欣赏，我也会感到自己慢慢透明，慢慢变色，我也会终夜含烟，然后离地而起。第二首，潜水艇的悲伤。9点上班时，我准备好咖啡和笔墨，再探头看看远处打来第几个风球。有用或无用时，我的潜水艇都在值班。铅灰的身体躲在风平的潜水塔。开头我想这样写：如今战争已不太来到，如今诅咒也换了方式。当我监听，能听见碎银子哗哗流动的声音。鲜红的海鲜仍使我倾心。艰难时事中，它越发通红。我们吃它，掌握信息的手在穿梭。当我开始写，我看见可爱的鱼包围了造船厂。国有企业的烂账 以及邻国经济的萧瑟，还有小姐驱使的妆容，这些不稳定的收据包围了我的潜水艇。于是我这样写道：还是看看我的潜水艇最新在何处下水，在谁的血管里破靠。锥心族、库族、低听的重金属分析了写作的潜望镜，酒精、云氧、高热量，好像介词、代词、感叹词，锁住我的皮肤成分。潜水艇，它要一直潜到海底，紧急但又无用的下潜，再没有一个口令可以支使它。从前我写过，现在还这样写，都如此不适宜了，你还在造你的潜水艇？它是战争的纪念碑，它是战争的坟墓，它将长眠海底，但它又是离我们越来越远的诗意幽闭的心境。正如你所看到的，现在我已造好潜水艇，可是水在哪儿？水在世界上拍打。现在我必须造水，为每件事物的悲伤制造它不可多得的完美。第3首诗，致阿赫玛托瓦。因为晨昏酗酒般的黄色公寓，我向你致敬。因为优雅不足以烘烤成面包，我向你致敬。因为蜿蜒队伍中，你曾佝偻而立，我向你致敬。因为绕行3圈，后人最终变出这居所，我向你致敬。统共3间的房屋，你搬来搬去，如今只剩黑白肖像瞪着你。没有主人公的房间，人流不息；没有主人公的长诗，无人续尾。唯有3间居所，遗世而沸腾；唯有当年穿行于此的脚步，数串的、心悸的、懒洋洋的、甜蜜的脚步；唯有当年的咆哮、阴语、尖叫，以及酒和血都浇不透的心中快乐；唯有黑暗能回到过去。除了旧皮箱仍在刀锋般闪亮，它塞满了另一世界的书信。除了解说员日复一日口干舌燥，除了未来的客人，谁千里迢迢来与你促膝谈心？除了把你的生命向全世界敞开，喷泉宫，你还能怎样？除了在楼梯拐角边签下留言向你致敬，除了自拍，除了风驰电掣般狂按快门，然后气息奄奄地融入商业大街，我还能怎样？一个3流的时代，争取一个3流的下午，已属不易。许多聪明人来过这里，来了又走， 许多书籍美丽精致，镶嵌画般地装潢了你，如同这栋看似简朴的古剧，装潢了你的苦难。唯有苏联的心灵不能装潢，唯有一代人的存在永不落幕，唯有诗不能弯曲。我立足于此，仍然听见他们来自地底的声音。谢谢。
Good evening and thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here to read in this company. I am sorry, Xu Bing, but I never wrote a poem for phoenixes as yet. But I do have poems for some smaller birds we find down here. So this is from a manuscript called Birds of the Verrazano Narrows, and it's about one bird only, this section. It's called More Than 13 Ways of Looking at a Cormorant. 1. The heart of the cormorant is at the head of its name. It wants more. 2. We applaud the cormorant even if the fish slipping down its gullet won't. 3. This young cormorant sure beat that old sea streak. 4. This morning, one single cormorant skims the scum. 5. Cormorant, a high sea over a low ohm. Oh, I'm ranting again. 6. I want more cores, more ants, to make more cormorants. 7. No cormorants this morning. Get out of my way, you fucking pigeons. 8. From now on, when you are not there on my morning walks, I'll call you just to spite you, damn birds. Just to spite you, I'll call you damn shags. 9. Finally, 2 cormorants, silent black arrows, fly up the narrows, maybe all the way to Mannahatta. 10. Give a man a fish, he'll eat it on Friday. Give a man a cormorant, they'll both eat fish every day. 11. So you are but a goddamn bald raven. At least your voice didn't betray you. 13. You follow me even home, where unbeknownst to me you have been hiding inside as my library cormorant. 14. The cormorant says Junji Yamashita, a master cormorant fisherman, is the bridge between God and man. 15. Once employed by the Packard Automobile Company as hood ornament, ask the bird who owns me. And laid off in 1958, the cormorant has returned to its riparian haunts. 16. A lone woman lived on the island of St. Nicholas off the southern coast of California for 18 years, wearing dresses made of cormorant feathers, sewn together with whale sinews. Found in 1853, she brought with her a green cormorant dress, reported to have been removed to the Vatican. The last one of those. In Cornish, you are called Cormoran, the sea giant in the tale of Jack the Giant Killer. And the second poem I'm reading is called Rigrack, and is the opening poem of a sequence of 3 with the general title, The Gulf from Rigrack to Disaster. It was a work commissioned by the Philadelphia Choir, The Crossing, Donald Nelly conductor. Some of the text is a partial writing through of Stéphane Mallarmé's Un Coup de Dé, one of the great modern shipwreck poems. And the work premiered in June 13, set to music by Gabriel Jackson. I will only read it, I cannot sing it. Rig wreck, a throw, what do we know, what can we know of the dice, of science, of love? Only the facts, that is to say, only effects. Never can this happen, never, even if, can this happen in science, in love, even when cast, Indra's net of love, even when cast, money's net of stone. What do we know, what can we know? What has caused this gulf between water and oil, you and me, in eternal circumstances? No circumstances are eternal. At the heart of this rig-wreck, what will we know? We know only effects, have to choose the causes. A shipwreck at the heart, that the gulf widens between water and oil, you and me, fish and water, me and you, that the abyss between water and water, you and you, me, oil and fish, widened, then whitened. There is slack rowing, raging underwater in the heart, under heart, in the water, on the brain. What we know is oil and water don't mix. What we know is fish and oil don't mix. What we know is you and I have to mix. What we know is you and I have to live under an incline, clinamen of a warming climb, an angle, not an angel, tells us me and you want to live, even if despair desperately soars and gets an angry rise from the phantom pain of its own planet's sore broken wing. A second-hand angel singing Ecce Homo, though not so sapiens, conscious liar, beforehand relapsed, liar, not released from wrongly steering the flight of this planetary love affair. No use repressing the outbursts of this lethal love affair, cleaving the bounds of this oily love affair. At the root of greed, set the rig afloat, a ship, finally a ship, the impossible change, for deep inside weighs the admission of impending disaster, the shadow hidden in the depth by this arrogance at the root of greed, this arrogance at the root of arrogance, this love for more, always spelled out in money, blows the rig up this morning, will blow the world up tomorrow. There is no alternate sail. Ship Earth in space, spaceship Earth, the only raft for dumb sapiens who has to learn to love the imperfect raft. There is no alternate sail. Dumb sapiens has to learn love, has to learn to adjust, has to learn to look to the spreading of disaster, has to learn to jump its yawning depth as great as any abyss between you and me. The hull of a rig, the hull of a ship careening from side to side, turns over and is for a moment cathedral, burning church of the worship of money, brightly floating death, flaunting love, rig wreck, a catastrophe here now, the circumstances local and global, not eternal. Only this now cannot grasp the hawser, opens a gulf between life and death, a millimeter uncrossable, a BP centipede monster at the heart of this rig wreck. Abolished responsibility. Moloch rules. Moloch rules. All rules broken when Moloch rules.
So hello, good evening, and this is my first time to read in a cathedral, so I feel very much honored. Also because I'm reading together with so many distinguished poets, and also Xu Bing's work. I'm sorry I have a cold. Just now actually I had a fever, and Mrs. Bernstein saved me. He gave me 2 pills, and now I'm sweaty. And I'm going to read a poem which is not from this booklet. During the dinner, actually, Mr. Bernstein gave me a newly translated poem of mine by my translator Lucas Klein. So I'm going to read this poem. It's a little bit long, but I think it's suitable to read here because it's like a prayer. And it's cold in New York right now, but the spring is coming. So the poem is Bloom. I'm going to read it in English. Bloom, 开花 in Chinese, that is 开花. If you are going to bloom, then bloom to my rhythm. Close your eyes for 1 second, breathe for 2, be silent for 3, then bloom. To bloom is liberation, to bloom is revolution. The universe did not begin with a bun, but a bloom. If you are happy, then bloom at dawn, bloom a blossom hiding vines. If you are depressed, then bloom in the evening because sunset promotes relaxation and absent-mindedness. Or in your depression, bloom laughter to keep from crying. And in frustration and fear and timidity, bloom wasting not and wanting not. Bloom to counteract residue fear, just release your fantasies of your other you. And if you've already bloomed, in fact, more than one blossom, then retreat to pre-ripeness and bloom again to my rhythm. My rhythm is the rhythm of dripping water, because water droplet hitting water droplet is the source of the river. To put it more extravagantly, the deep blue sea comes from water droplet hitting water droplet. You must believe the sea has a blue heart. Oh, such a great flower. What a grand flower. So I order you to bloom. This is request you to bloom. I humbly implore you. If you make me kneel, I kneel, even if you were foxtail Bristol grass. Bloom a pear blossom in case the nape of your neck is cold. Bloom a peach blossom in case your back is itchy from the warmth of the sun. But in case you're still reluctant, in case you're still trying to decide whether to bloom or not to bloom, then listen to me. Listen to me. First, stretch out 1 petal. Then stretch out 2 petals, then 4 petals. 3 petals and 5 petals are the geometry of nature. But if you want to, you can stretch out 50 petals. 500,000 petals is called flourishing. The earthworms are waiting. Even the flies are getting greener to match the earth's imagination. Even the town-deaf swallows are singing. This puts kings and marquises and generals, ministers in a better mood. Once they are in the better mood, they care more about the lives of little people. They might even admit that they themselves are little people. But I want you to bloom. That is, when you're in a rotten mood, I still want you to keep in mind that little people are people, they are natural, they are the Tao. Bloom, unleash a deep underground spring with your rhizome. When you and your neighbor are having some trouble, when you and your aunt and uncle pound the table and stare each other down and you don't know who can help, bloom and change your way of living. Brothers 1 and 3, brothers 2 and 3 and 4 have taken off their shoes. They are getting ready to dance. Brothers 5 and 6 and 7 are seeing stars. They are getting ready to scream. Go for it, even if it's vulgar, even if it's obscene. Do it to my rhythm and you will bloom blossoms of happiness. Blooming is opening your mouth after deep silence to whisper sweet nothings to another deep flower. Unsatisfied people figure the whole world is deaf,
but shouting obscenities isn't as good as blooming. Well, blooming is giving sight and sound to the deaf and blind, and learning to get drunk. Bloom uncivilized blossoms, bloom unbearable blossoms, bloom the abnormal and unreasonable, the illogical, like a heavy downpour on 1,000,000 square kilometers of desert. Bloom fantastical indulgence in case even fantasies bloom that would definitely be for you, to bloom with abundance. Bloom till you're ecstatic from the valley of death, from the village of rejection, from the crevice of the city, from the central square. The central square is full of people. The alleys around the central square are full of silent cows and sheep. Go into the clouds and sunset and catch a cow or sheep, share its good intentions. Go into the dumpster and catch a pig, touch its beating heart. 3,000 pigs are wearing flowers in their bristles. See who dare take them to the slaughterhouse. 9,000 sheep leap off a cliff because the lead sheep wanted to die in the flower bed below. Bloom, said Confucius to Yan Hui. Bloom, said Liang Shanbo to Zhu Yingtai. In March, in May, in the smoke of Beijing, Shijiazhuang, Taiyuan, Kaifeng, and Luoyang, Bloom, said Ouyang Jianghe to his new girlfriend. Bloom, the countenance of a panther curled up in the shade of a tree. Bloom, the contemplations of a tiger wandering through the forest of glass, concrete, and steel. Blooming is a game of adventure. It's happiness finding the opening of the body, dark underground water finding an escape. Dogs of all sizes in 250 villages bark in unison when you bloom. You bloom, you are a brave flower, you are a brave flower, brave in your bold battles and scampering. You're a compassionate and merciful flower, compassionate and merciful in catastrophes of crumbled buildings. If you bloom, I will sit up, stand up, jump up, fly up. I will ring bells and band drums. I will breathe loudly. You can even do it without following my rhythm. Bloom into the sky, I'll climb up a ladder after you. If you bloom too high, I will build an airplane and fly after you. I want to recite what you say in your sleep. I want to witness your nipples blooming, your belly button blooming, your toes blooming. I want to smell, to engulf the boundless fragrance of your soul. I want to shout with you, joy. The joy of pools of construction sites, the joy of stinky feet in the open market. Twitching, trembling, shivering joy. Unjoyful, yet somehow still joyful. Joy dripping with fucking sweat joy. So you have to bloom to greet my garrulousness. Blooming once isn't enough. Bloom 3,000 times. Blooming 3,000 times still isn't enough. Bloom 108,000 times. Bloom 3,000 boundless universes, and stirring up and beat any beast that refuses to bloom. Bloom when ants distribute sweet like the wind distributes seas. When clouds soar in the skies distribute 10,000 tons of water like owls in darkness distributing sleep. The stars look at you and you are looking at the stars. You can't stand there twinkling like they can't stand your sumptuousness. The guy fixing computers on star 1 says, you should bloom. The kid riding an ostrich on star 2 says, you should bloom. You hear it. Someone turns on a light on the far side of the moon. On Halley's Comet, people clap their hands. The man who turned on the light finds his kaleidoscope in a cluttered drawer. The people applaud till they spot Space Mandela. spining and shining and shimmering. As you at the center of the stamen keep blooming, like someone growing another head from the top of her own head. But in case you're still reluctant, in case you're still trying to decide whether to bloom or not to bloom, then listen to me. First, stretch out one petal, then stretch out 2 petals, then 4 petals, 3 petals, and 5 petals are the geometry of nature. But if you want to, you can stretch out 50 petals, 500,000 petals is called flourishing. Just bloom like a fool. Just bloom casually and carelessly, come for all your marvelousness bloom. Thank you.
Here is part of a poem about birds falling out of the sky from toxicity in the air. A bird falls out of the air through the anti-weave into the anti-net, delineating anti-imminence. 24 crows upstate. Each fall is a gestural syllable. Cover them with a blue cloth of creatures ready to be born. Contact like starlight that will arrive for sure. Let mothers catch them. Raccoon, Labrador bitch, girl. Interspecies, conservative mothers. Arms out like foliage. No locomotion of their own. This is part of a poem about 2 people who are separated, and the objects in their environment start to open up and become accessible to each other, like space above a lake. So the lake, it fluctuates as on film of you telling a story when we were young. Your voice like a lake at night with fireflies blinking on and off above it. Our moments together and separate are pervaded with space above the lake. Each molecule between places may be full of gaps, discontinuities, allowing us to slip through landscape more easily. Soon the lake is no longer reflecting at all. Stars on the surface are not reflections of fireflies in my part of space. They're stars from somewhere else, and they're not on the surface. They shine in open space, visible through the lake. By lake, I mean a landscape between reflection and translucence, condensing to a point of what we say while watching real Sonoran fireflies and phosphorescent cacti blossoms. Memory is how one expressing an outline in the form of a blossom becomes the glow of that form. Seeds planted in the mental glow strand continuum create cooperative conditions for my encounter in real time as feeling for others. Light extending into a mandala if any friend dies ever. Mirror on the ground you see through when I think of you. Ground is dark lava. Here is part of a poem about the affinities and communication between plants and people. The rose communicates instantly with the woman by sight, collapsing its boundaries, and the woman widens her boundaries. Her rate of perception slows down because of its complexity. There's a feeling of touching and being touched. The shadings of color she can sense from touch. There's an affinity between awareness and blossom. The rose symbolizes the light of this self-affinity. I come to visit drooping white cabbage roses at dusk. That corner of the garden glows with the quality of light I might see when light shines through mist or in early morning reflects off water. I stand quietly and allow this quality to permeate air around me. Here, with a white rose, color is clairsentient, this color in the process of being expressed, like seeing Venus in the day. Walking, I move in and out of negative space around which each rose is engaged and become uncertain of my physical extent as an object. Look at the energy between people and plants. Your heart moves into depth perception. For depth, read speed of light. I set my intention through this sense of moving into coherence with the biophotons of a plant and generate feeling in response. A space opens and awareness gathers it in. As at night my dream is colorless and weaves into the nuance, I can intentionally engage with the coherence of light beams, instant as though lightless, or the colored light of a dimension not yet arrived, as our hearts are not outside affinity with respect to wavelength, shaping meaning, using the capacity for feeling to sense its potency in a rose, and to cultivate interbeing with summer perfume.
Good evening. It's my great honor to be here. And I'm going to read seven short poems this evening. The first one, taking a speedboat from Dongchong to Sanmen Island and back.乘快艇东冲至三门岛返还记，麻利的套上橘黄色救生衣， 给那几道纤细的衣带打好活结。我以为那一刻近似于童年的游戏。深蓝的小快艇仅能容下5、6人。当我们中最高大的一位在前排落座，我们都笑说是他令我们的小艇稳健。路程不长，从东冲至三门岛，自海滩望过去，海面也称不上辽阔，而那承载着我们的小艇却衬托了大海的深远。不止如此，第二天清早，当细雨在疾风中投奔大海，我和朋友乘舟返回东冲。渔夫用全速摆脱昏沉的睡梦，快艇在坚硬的海面上蹦跳着，仿佛一个顽童练习着立定跳远。而片片水花溅起来，和雨水一道，模糊了我们的视野。有一些瞬间，我确实感到了铅灰色的水面下几尺深度是大海铁的本质。Second poem. For a poet, my conferior. 致一位诗人，我的同行。给你的诗必须是这样一种样式：2行平行，仿佛我们并肩走在街上。这也意味着停顿是在谈话中，转折就像话题转弯，拐往另一条街。慢是我们心仪的速度，但也不能变成一种自我暗示，甚至借口。所以沉默，是的，很久以来我们都互相沉默。就算我们一起走过相同的路，进过同一家馆子，今天我们有一个明确的目标，你领我去一个地方。如果我选择了跟随，那将意味着我不再沉默，我需要一个出口。就算我们进入的是那先贤者们都曾领受过的炼狱。The second poem, Craftsman. 匠人，他曾拜名师，使用模具。他是技艺娴熟，留下过样品，又被另一幅杰作覆盖。师长们的夸赞，客户抢购。如今，他离开众人，一心一意陷入沉思。他随意拿起一块石头雕刻，期待中一个生命诞生，有一个形体，也许并不优美，也许能开口说话，也许保持沉默。他可能一直是探索，从第一根绳线开始，他捡起来编织，他纠缠联系，没有师傅，没有样本，但他渐渐从线团中找到结合和网络的方向。他知道生命已经开始。他漫不经心，用最快乐的感情。也许他因这创作而闻名，也许他永远隐性。Next poem, J. 灰喜鹊。他总是听见他们谈话，他破译着，像传说中的公冶长。他们中的一个从远方归来，兴致勃勃讲述他的历险。其他的伙伴们争着嚷嚷，相信或怀疑， 拖长着音调，无比亲密呀。讲述者的声音不再欢快，好像被揭穿了底似的，或者是累了，是不屑于同无知者啰嗦。而妈妈总是骂他说话的担子，闭嘴吧，灰喜鹊，你个子小，也挑不动担子。而某一天，一只灰喜鹊死在高大的槐树下，像是从睡眠的窝巢中跌下，尖嘴闭得紧紧，而他年龄太小，破译不了死的沉默。Next poem, Fishman. 垂钓者。白天，老人来到河边钓鱼，孩子坐在树下。惊异于垂钓者从容不迫，担心鱼儿无常的命运。老人的白天就这样被孩子目睹，而他的夜生活他无从猜想，只晓得远在一片竹林里，老人的小屋若隐若现，孩子从未走进深绿的竹荫，但他守候过老人。小河边雨水天，斗笠下的白胡子闪着荧光，犹如鲫鱼的肚皮。鱼儿的命运装在竹篓里，被他拎走。整个夏天，雨水和小河顺着老人的身影流淌。树下，孩子的板凳陷到了土里，担心着鱼儿水下的命运，他们来了又去，把鱼儿含在口中又吐掉。有时候，他们中的一个会侥幸地上钩，被老人带走，走上另外的命运。见人谈话微笑有礼貌。孩子聆听老人的教诲。夏天不利于孩子成长，夏天的身体暴露，蚊虫的热情像鱼儿从水中让老人领走。布满死亡烂臭味的夏天，离我们太近。某夜，竹林小屋，老人死于谋财害命。人们传言，太多的鬼魂追上了他。Next poem, Slowness. 知觉在恢复，从麻木日子的肘弯处，疼痛的慢，如爱的淡味。辣酱刺激胃口，夜宵能醒梦，喝红酒到微醉，血液也感受着肉体的慢或热的运行。坐着，坐着，坐在灯下，请求手指的舞步，领会写作的慢。一生的多少瞬间，伴随着心灵的醒。Last poem, Nameless Lake. 未名湖。通向你的路被插上了路标，探险的意义也就荡然无存。幸亏记忆被收藏得很紧，也许还一度被锁进了讲桌。匆匆行走的脚步比神色更叫人难忘，其中的一些宁愿把围绕你的环形称为锻炼，这恰好符合了教育的暗示。水面也照见过太多的脸孔，并不特别记下哪一位。因此，说到一个故事，有人往往把它想象为一个事故。Thank you.
I want to thank Professor Lydia Liu for bringing us together. Yes, sure. It's for those of us in New York or in the United States, it's so rare to hear these voices of Chinese poetry, and it's thrilling for me to be a part of that. So I'm going to read the last part of a libretto that I wrote on and for Walter Benjamin. And I'm imagining it as perhaps the two parts being sung by these two great birds that I see before me. Stele for Failed Time, the epilogue to Shadow Time, the music by Brian Fernhow. This is the solo for Melancholia as the Angel of History. Just as I, no sooner than I had seen you for the first time, journeyed back with you from where I came, and the faces I saw had disappeared, unable to trace what I had known too long, just as you journeyed back with me no sooner than we met where you fell for the first time, hardly to face the facts I saw, what I had known always disappearing, and the places you saw unable to trace what's known, then gone, just as I journeyed back with you no sooner than I held you from where I came for the last time, never to face the facts I saw, what I had forgotten now whispers, just as you, no sooner than you touched me, the first time journeyed back with me to where I am. Tvudli oxy, quank at me, waksa quaka long at me, kavu, dese vule muat, wakwa ila vu, klak. Blame is a child's game played by men in the furor of their discontent. Tooth, mox, knob, jawab, nufa, vu miat me, vu, jame, vu, dofomawabat. Beyond the despair is the listlessness of not, the shipwreck of the irrational on the shores of the promised. This is where I found her, disappearing into the tears hidden in the masks of the victor's tears. Vu ini tomadmatu du vo qua vo zo chahato voque vejo se viho wakmate. Blame a child's game played by men in the bureaus of their contempt. Vu qua a ke a uvla, ukwa inka tu a acta ublie, kumf hak a flukwa. Deep in the heavens, high on the breeze, I told the examiner, found the key, went to the opening, key didn't fit, forged another, it got ripped. First there's a tumble, then there's a sash, so irksome you scratch it, scratch till it's ash. Losing the battles, winning the war, sinking in quicksand when you can think at all. Sometimes look back, sometimes set fires. Who's to judge? No one's above desire. The monkeys you are, the angels you'll be when truth comes to lashes, when language is weed. Qua ama vum ti aksehim vu setevami, it's vu atli, vu gaman mak. I back away, helpless, my eyes fixed. This is my task, to imagine no holes from all that has been smashed. For now time is lost, now time is crushed, now time is empty, now time is framed, now time is lived, now time is hollow. Now time is smoked. Now time is stolen. And the new angels pass away like sparks on coal. Just as we, no sooner than we had seen each other for the first time, journeyed back together from where we came. For now time is lost. Now time is gained. Now time is empty. Now time is full. Now time is lived. Now time is hollow. Now time is made. Now time is stone. The best picture of a picture is not a picture, but the negative. The negative pictures the picture just as I picture you, without ever seeing the picture you see as your reflection. What can't be seen is still apprehended, even as I lose more than I retain, as I go backward in time toward time's end. Keeping still, I misplace the picture of the picture, tossed in tales of the ruin of the telling, unraveling the threads that hold the leaves, scattering the frieze. The best picture of a picture is not the picture, but its reverse, rehearsing tales until they unfold in the tolling, even as I regret more than I resemble, in the tumble of my apprehensive incomprehending. The negative pictures the picture better than the picture, just as I picture you without ever having seen you or touched you, as now you fall from my arms into my capacious, insomniac forgetting. For now time is lost. Now time is gained. Now time is empty. Now time is full. Now time is lived. Now time is hollow. Now time is made. Now time is stone.
我选读2节那个凤凰，这是一首很长的，是19节。我读第1节和这个上面选了的大概是15节吧，不是15啊，14。凤凰1，给从未起飞的飞翔搭一片天外天，在天地之间搭一个工作的脚手架。神的工作与人类相同，都是在荒凉的地方种一些树，炎热时走到龙荫树下。树上的果实喝过奶，但他们更想喝冰镇的可乐，因为易拉罐的甜是一个观念化。鸟儿嫌萤火虫飞入果实，水的灯笼在夕照中悬挂。但种树消失了，水泥的世界拔地而起。人不会飞，却把房子盖到天空中，给鸟的生态填一堆砖瓦，然后从思想的原材料取出字和肉身，百炼之后，钢铁变得鸟了，黄金和废弃物一起飞翔。鸟儿以工业的体量改，跨国越界，立人心为司法。人写下自己，凤为撇，凰为蜡。14，然后轮到了徐斌，瞧，他从鸟肺掏出一些零配件的龙箱，一些次第的芯片、索引 火力。即使拆除了战争，也要把凤凰组装得像一支军队。他从内省掏出10来个外省和外国，然后掏出一个外星空。空本就是空的，被他掏空了，反而凭空掏出些真东西，比如掏出生活的水电，但又在美学这一边把插头拔掉，掏出一个小本，把死尸的大部头写成笔记体，词的仓库搬运一空。他组装了王和王后，却拆除了统治；组装了永生，却把它给了亡灵；组装了当代，却让人身处古代。这白夜的菊花灯笼啊，这万古愁，这伤痕累累的手艺和注目礼，凤凰彻悟飞的真谛，却不飞了。
Good evening, everybody. I dare not use my poor English, speak here, speak in this space. So I invited my New York studio assistant Sheng Xuan help me do the translation. 我这辈子呀，其实呢是做过很多事儿。 而做过很多的艺术，也写过一些东西，但是呢，从来没写过一句诗。
I have done many things in my life, creating a lot of artworks. However, I have never created any line of poem.
因为呢，在我看来呢。 诗歌呢和诗人呢是最值得尊敬的。
Because according to my point of view, poems and poets are the most respected.
因为呢，他们用一支笔和一张纸最简洁的材料，把思维呢和想象呢推得非常远。
Only with a pen and a piece of paper. They are able to express their ideas and further their thoughts.
而不像艺术家呢，浪费很多的材料。即使是呢，我用这些废料，也是非常沉重的，浪费很多的能量，把它们拖来拖去。
It's not like those artists who are wasting a lot of materials. Even though I have been using a lot of debris to build this piece, I still waste a lot of energy to ship them from here to there.
所以呢，我呢特别的、真心的感谢今天的这些诗人，美国的诗人和远道而来的中国的诗人。
I want to say thank you for all the poets present today, from New York as well as from so far away from Beijing, China.
诗歌总是给我很多的思想的启示，以及思维的动力。
Poems have always been my source of inspiration and ideas.
今晚呢，他们的诗句呢，让这两只大鸟呢。 具有了生命力。
Tonight, the poems just blew life into the two great birds.
这两只 birds 呢，有人说呢，它们是具有神性的。是由于呢，它呢的材料呢，每一块材料呢，都是由劳动者之手触碰过的。
Some say the phoenix is a pair of birds of divinity. It lies in the fact that every piece of the materials are touched by the hands of workers.
这一点呢，与圣约翰大教堂的对人类的命运的关怀，以及对底层的普通人的关怀相呼应，构成了这个人间的美的和尊严的空间。
Another thing is the Cathedral of St. John's Divine, its care for the common people's circumstances. The two things I mentioned above just resonate to each other, thus creating such a space for beauty and dignity.
我在这儿呢，特别想感谢呢，丁 Kowalski 他的信仰的态度，以及他对文化和艺术的开放精神，让这两只大鸟呢能够在这里驻足。
I would love to say thank you for the Dean, James Kowalski. It's your power of belief as well as your open attitude to culture and arts that make this pair of birds flying.
另外呢，我想感谢 Vice President Schubert， 他呢几乎把他所有的能量都用于呢让这两只凤凰呢在教堂中飞起来这件事情。
I also would love to say thank you to Vice President of the Cathedral, Schubert. You devoted all your energy into the flight of this pair of phoenix in the cathedral. Thank you.
另外呢，我也想感谢这个项目的策展人，我的朋友 Judith Goldman， 他呢用他的对艺术的判断，以及他的艺术的慧眼，启动了这个项目。
I would also love to say thank you for the curator of this show, Judith Goldman. It is your discernment in assessing art that make this project happen.
接下来，我想感谢呢，这个利迪亚刘教授，他呢，这个是我最尊敬的学者之一。他呢，把凤凰的整个的1年多以来的一系列的项目的最后的一笔的这个项目，举办的这么有质量和这么美好。
I would also to thank Lydia Liu. She's one of the most loved scholars for me. And thank you for organizing this such beautiful, lovely closing event for Phoenix, which had been last for the past 1 year.
这个在这里呢，我也想再强调一下，感谢呢大教堂的所有的工作人员，以及呢为这次活动所付出贡献的各大的有关部门以及个人对这个项目的支持。
Thank you all, the staff from the Cathedral of St. John's Divine, as well as the persons and department from the Columbia University for your support of this poetry reading event.
另外呢，我最后呢想说呢，我今天非常高兴的是，因为我的母亲呢也到场了，以及我的一些家人啊，所以呢，她呢对我的一生的这种奉献和鼓励，让我呢能够做一些事情，非常感谢。
Last but not least, I would love to thank my mother, who is present with us, as well as my family. It is her encouragement that make me where I am today.
谢谢大家。凤凰呢是高傲的，传说中的凤凰呢是非梧桐树而不落的。在中国呢，在世界各地呢， 他寻找着能着落的地方。最后呢，寻找到了纽约的圣约翰大教堂，他也是幸运的。接下来呢，他会呢寻找另外的新的一个文化空间，或者说语境，与更多的人群进行交流。
In the legend, phoenix are a pair of birds of pride. They will rest and only rest on sycamore trees. All around the world, they are looking for a place to settle down. They are lucky to find their place in the Cathedral of St. John the Divine. And later, they will fly away to their next stop to communicate more with a new group of people under a new cultural context. Thank you.
Thank you. 谢谢 ，Thank you。下面呢，下面呢的环节呢，是由这个策划者 Lydia 呢指示的呢，说有一个活动是这些优秀的诗人的这个算是这个授书签名是吧？啊，但是这里要说明一点，就是欧阳江河的这个诗集呢，由于各种原因没有到，所以呢，需要大家可以从这个什么网络上啊去 order 啊，就是这样。谢谢大家。
The next stage, we will go to see whether, if anyone is interested, you can purchase some of the poems by the poets that we have seen today. However, because of some reason, Ouyang Jianghe's books have not arrived yet, unfortunately. But you are welcome to sign up for a form to order it if you get interested. Thank you so much.